Welcome back to my channel and welcome to today's video. Today's video I'm going to be talking about 3 2025 releases and whether I would recommend them. So I have read these books recently and I just wanted to sit down and talk about them and just share my thoughts on them and whether I would recommend that you pick them up. Obviously there are a lot of new releases that have come out throughout the year and I just wanted to share some of these. Some of these are from earlier in the year and there's I think two of them are quite recent, like October, November releases, and one was from April. But I just wanted to kind of share my thoughts on them, let you know whether they are worth picking up. So I'll start in order of my kind of ratings on them. And I think, spoiler alert, most of these three I would recommend picking up. There are some that I would recommend over others, but I had a good time with most of them for the main part. So the first one is Violet Thistlethwaite is Not a Villain Anymore by Emily Krempholtz, and this one I would say is a cozy fantasy with a little bit of romance, and if you are looking for something in that vein then I think this would definitely be worth picking up. People that have blurbed it are Sarah Beth Durst, so if you've liked her books you might like this book, and I thought that this one was good. I did have a good time with it and gave it 3 stars. So in this one we are following what was her name? What was her name? Her name's in the title, Violet, and she starts out the book, she is a bad witch. She has been working with this evil sorcerer for many years because he's kind of taken her in and kind of coerced her into doing that, but she has decided now that he has been defeated and he has been killed, she wants to be good. So she moves to this small town called Dragon's Rest and she opens up a florist shop, and she rents the space from Prue and her brother Nathaniel, and it is a bit of a romance between Nathaniel and Violet. And whilst Violet is in the town, she's obviously settling into small town life, so she meets some of the townspeople and is obviously settling into having her shop. Nathaniel is very grumpy and she is very outgoing and bubbly, and so he doesn't really like her initially. It does take her some time to kind of wear him down. And while she is in town there is this blight that kind of takes over the town, and they are trying to figure out who is causing the blight, what's causing the blight, and how to stop it. So there is kind of that plot line going through, and that does kind of take up a majority of the book, which is why I would say this is more of a cozy fantasy with a romantic subplot. There is a happy ever after in it, so I guess it could be classified as a romance, but I would say it leans more on the kind of cozy fantasy vibes rather than the romance. Overall, I really enjoyed this one and I would recommend picking it up if you are looking for that cozy type of book. I gave this one 3 stars, and the reason I didn't give it a higher rating is because it took me a little while to get into this one. The initial kind of setup, it did take me a while to get into it, but overall I had a good time with this and would definitely recommend it. I'm definitely interested to see what this author does next because this was her debut book, I believe. I'm not sure if she is going to write more books set in this world or if the next book is going to be something completely different. I don't think there's been any announcements on what's coming next from her, but I definitely would be interested to check out more from her in the future. Next we have Next Time Will Be Our Turn by Jessie Sutarno, and I like this one and I would definitely recommend it. If you like Jessie Sutarno's books then you'll probably want to pick this up, but I will kind of give this with a warning that this book is very different to her previous books. So I have read quite a few of her books now. She has some young adult ones and some adults, and she's written in kind of the contemporary genre, mystery thriller genre, and the kind of cozy mystery genre. And the books I've read from her, a lot of them feature humour, which I really like. So the Vera Wong series, for example, is very funny and a very light-hearted series, whereas this is definitely more different in tone. This one I would say is a contemporary fiction story, and it is told in 2 timelines. So we have a female main character in present day called Izzy, and she kind of talks about her family and some of the expectations that she has on her. And she is at a family gathering, and her grandmother walks in with another woman, and this woman is clearly, there is a romantic relationship going on, and this is a big scandal within Izzy's family. And Izzy kind of goes and sees her grandma, and her grandma starts telling her the story about her youth and how she kind of learned that she liked girls and how that kind of progressed. And throughout the story, so we go back in time where Magnolia, who is Izzy's grandma, is telling her story of how she went over from Indonesia to America when she was 16 to go to college. And when she was there, she met a girl called Ellery. I was just had to remind myself of the name, and she kind of had this instant attraction to Ellery. Although she'd always thought of herself as being straight, she had this attraction to Ellery that she couldn't really quite explain, and they had a friendship while she was at college, and they were very, very close, and they definitely had feelings for one another, but they were never really discussed them or anything like that, because obviously of the time period, and also the fact that Ellery was openly gay, whereas obviously Magnolia wasn't, and there was definite expectations from her family that she would marry and have like the perfect husband, and be like the perfect wife, and obviously being attracted to girls wasn't part of the equation. And so we see her go through college, and then we go later on and we see Magnolia get married to a man, because Ellery and Magnolia kind of had this falling out, and this story doesn't go the way that you expect it to go, and the ending is quite sad. So that's why I said it's more of a contemporary fiction rather than a romance. I did think going into this that this was a romance, which I think is why I gave it a 3.5 stars, is because partly it wasn't what I was expecting this book to be, and it was a lot sadder than I thought. Also, I did think that whilst Magnolia was recounting some of her life, even when she kind of grew up and was like in her 20s, she still read a little bit juvenile, in my opinion, which I didn't necessarily love. And as I say, it doesn't end where you're expecting it to go. And one thing I really like about previous books that I've read from this author is the humour, whereas this book didn't have that. This book isn't really a light, fun read. It is definitely a more emotional read, I would say. And as I say, be prepared for the ending, because it doesn't go where you expect it to. I don't want to obviously spoil it, but I would recommend this, but definitely go in with the right expectations, because I think if you go in expecting a sapphic romance, which is what I was kind of expecting, you may be disappointed. There is obviously sapphic relationships mentioned in here, but it doesn't go kind of the way you're expecting it to go. And that's all I say on that one. But yeah, I would definitely recommend this one. And then the last one I have to mention is Hazardous to a Duke's Heart by Sabrina Jeffries. This is book 1 in the Lords of Hazard series. And this one is obviously historical romance, and I would recommend this one. I gave this one 4 stars. I haven't been reading a ton of historical romance this year, although it was one of my goals to try and read more. I have read a decent amount, I think, but not maybe as much as I would have wanted to. But I did have a good time with this one. This one follows Violet and John, or Tori and John, and John has been away in France during the Napoleonic Wars. English civilians that were out in France at the time got captured and kind of imprisoned, and they were taken into these kind of towns that became like prison towns. So they did have some freedoms within the town, but they were essentially still prisoners. But John and a few of his friends and tutor, Mr. Morris is his name, were tried to escape, and so they ended up getting taken to a prison that was very dangerous and not a very nice place to be. And at the beginning of the book, they have been away in France for I think like 8 years, and we see them in the prison, and Morris is unfortunately dying, and right as he passes away, it gets announced the end of the wars, and they get released. And obviously John has to go back to London to see his family. He finds out that his brothers have passed away, and so he is now the Duke, and he obviously is reconnecting with his mother and sister. And whilst in the house, he meets Tori, who is Chloe, who is his sister's governess, who has been taken in. She is Morris's daughter, and whilst Morris was dying, John promised that he would look out for Morris's daughter and make sure that she found a husband. And it is obviously their romance. They initially don't want, Tori doesn't initially want to get married because she has secrets of her own, which I don't want to spoil here, but she doesn't want to get married for various reasons. She doesn't think that a husband would be very accepting of the secret that she has. And it is their story. I really like seeing the relationship develop between this one. This is a very short book, but I had a really good time reading it. And as I say, I really like seeing the romance develop between the two. And I'm definitely looking forward to more books in the series. John has 2 friends, and I assume that each of those friends is going to have their own book. I'm certain that the next book is going to definitely be one of his friends and a character that is introduced in here. I won't say who that is because I think it will be a spoiler, but they're going to have their romance, and I assume that John's sister is probably going to have a romance with one of his friends, judging by the events of this book. But yeah, I had a really good time reading this. If you're looking for a historical romance, I definitely would recommend this one. I haven't read a ton from Sabrina Jeffries, but she is an author that I definitely do want to read more from, and overall I had a good time, and I gave this one 4 stars. So I've had a really good time with these new releases, and I would definitely recommend all of the 3 that I've read for this video. Obviously, depending on the type of reader that you are, depending on the type of book that you're looking for, hopefully there's something in here that you are interested in picking up. Let me know if you've read any of these, what your thoughts were on them, and I will see you in my next video.